Some people pay millions of dollars to donate buildings. Some people download Photoshop and color correct. Some people go to Model United Nations. And some people start the 98th NGO we don't need that will immediately dissolve miraculously once they're in college. But it's writing about the most interesting topic in the world, yourself, that will definitely convince the admissions officers to accept you, right? Obviously no, so here's the free Uni Simp starter kit that I compiled for you. You're welcome. So there's a manifestation shrine, rice, so you can show demonstrated interest for Rice University, some mushrooms and LSD so you can write supplements for U Chicago, uni fanfic, so you can test and see if you and Harvard are compatible or not, fat stacks of cash, a cancer cure, and catfish equipment for your extracurriculars. Well, in my case, I think that was what worked for me. I know only a fraction of the whole college admissions process, and let's be honest, no one really knows how it works. You could be rejected because the admissions officer didn't have a cup of coffee, or it could really just be them not liking your explanation of your Roma obsession. Anyway, I will offer some advice, or at least whatever worked for me, but take it with a grain of salt, obviously, because really in the grand scheme of things, I don't know anything, and this is just what I think got me into Stanford, or it could just be luck, and it probably is. So while I do really enjoy laughing at you high schoolers, desperately trying to think of food metaphors that also speak the truths of life. Maybe you, just like an onion, have layers, but I also do want to make it easier for you. So while I was going through this process myself, these videos, like reading my college essays that got me into this school or that school, these videos definitely helped a lot, but also for me, watching too many of these videos gave me a lot of anxiety. But, well, everything gives me anxiety. But what I'm trying to say is just trust your instinct at the end of the day, because we don't really know what we're talking about anyway. But if you're going to watch some videos, then I suggest this one, and this is definitely not biased. I promise to get to reading my essay soon, because summer is probably the time you'll start thinking about topics to write about. If you're not a procrastinator like me, I just want to say that the topic is secondary to whatever message you aim to deliver. So my first tip is this. Think about college essays like this. There's a vehicle, and there's something that the vehicle is transporting. So that's your message. But ultimately, if the vehicle is just transporting some generic idea but packaged nicely, it's still not going to be a good essay in your opinion. I want to gain an insight into who you are by learning about how you reacted to this event, so your perspective or what lesson you got out of this. I'm sure they've come across almost everything you can think of. So your perspective is what matters in this scenario. And don't think just because your vehicle is cool and unique, your message can be totally generic. And I'll explain this further in depth when I analyze my own Common App essay, because I can give you like concrete examples. So my second tip is about being generic. The AOs or admissions officers understand that of course a lesson that you get out of an experience can't really not be generic, but still try to put a little unique twist on whatever lesson you learned. So when you decide on the message, for example, being yourself is better, just ask and after that, so okay, being yourself is better, and so try to attack this argument and think about possible counter arguments, and maybe that can help you with fleshing out this generic message into something that's more you or more specific. My third tip is that they want to see you from these essays. Know your strengths and know your weak points. But also, if you already emphasize that you're the captain of the football team like 5 times on your application, don't write an essay on that. Make sure to appeal to aspects of your character that are unique, so to speak, to the extent that anyone can be unique, but also that you haven't mentioned anywhere on your application. Also know your stereotypes. I know America is very racist, blah blah blah. So now use these against them. So for example, if you're an Asian going to computer science, what makes you unique? who are you behind the programming and all that, right? How are you different from all the other 1600 SAT scorers? After reading your essay, you won't be an Asian programmer anymore, a generic one, rather an Asian programmer who also dabbles in heavy metal and plays the didgeridoo in their free time. That's quirky, you know? But also, please don't try too hard to be quirky, they can sense your desperation. Now, this is what you've been waiting for. Just a quick disclaimer, I don't know if these essays are good, but the AO who read them sent me a little email noting the good parts of it, but really, feel free to not like them. Okay.
Someone who laughs like you.
There I was in a stranger's car, clutching onto lavash bread and 2 jars of homemade apricot jam for dear life, wondering where we were heading as Google Maps went berserk. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Every now and then, I make a risky decision that jolts my life. 9-year-old me left her comfort zone to emigrate to Germany. In 9th grade, I flew to Nepal alone to volunteer there. Recently, I blasted off to United World Colleges in Armenia, which my grandma still confuses with America. And each time, my brain holds a trial. The plaintiff, bravery. The defendant, nervousness. Bravery argues that nervousness is just weakness masquerading as rationality and charges it with first-degree murder of my dreams. Nervousness, neuron tendril handcuffs around its wrists, vehemently pleads not guilty and accuses bravery of being no different from stupidity. Disappointingly, my brain adjourns the trial every time a breakthrough seems near. When my friend pitched me a 3-day hitchhiking trip in Armenian countryside, I managed out a shaky che, parentheses no, before realizing that that's just about the only Armenian word both of us knew. But there would be no story if I didn't go against nervousness's desperate protests. Before I knew it, all I could see was the road dimly lit by the veering headlights of the car going in the wrong direction. Nervousness stuck out its tongue and mocked bravery. I told you so. Was this a wrong decision? The goosebumps swelling up and the hair standing on the back of my neck certainly thought so. But then I would have never gotten invited into a policeman's hut for coffee, nor attended a restaurant concert where I got to recruit a musician for Diligent Arts Festival, nor been offered a tour around hidden cliffs shaped by magma. I took a leap of faith with this decision. Kierkegaard would say that our rationality can only do so much. We must rely on our will, trust, and passion. Faith cannot be reduced to logic, axioms, and other technical jargon philosophers love. Similarly, I took a leap of faith when I sent my poetry collection to a publishing company and when I ran for student council president. It's the outcome shrouded in fog, the anticipation lingering in the air before the coin lands heads or tails that make my heart shudder with excitement. Rejection can be devastating because a part of me lives in each attempt, but I am willing to undergo possible failure to leave a mark, to share my voice. My impact shall not be stagnant in this ever-changing reality. Oh, I gasped and then coughed as I accidentally inhaled the driver's cigarette smoke. The jury will be out forever because there can't be a winner. Bravery is only truly brave in the face of nervousness, and nervousness only exists if I were brave enough to even consider a dangerous idea. To deconstruct their quasi-dichotomy, I must realize that life doesn't exist within the binary. The gray nuance is what makes me me, with my contradicting interests of science and art and my past entangled in different cultures. Every time someone steps forward with their idiosyncrasies, the world becomes more vibrant. I will leap into the beautiful pandemonium, filled with such wonder, and leave a print that is uniquely and forever me. Armed with bravery and shielded with nervousness, that's how we can challenge the unknown, then embrace it. You okay? Need to get off, like now, my friend whispered, clammy hand gripping mine. I smiled and firmly squeezed it back. I'm more than okay. Somehow not kidnapped, we hastily leapt off with lavash and jam and started to walk, uncertain but moving forward nonetheless. We resolved to give nervousness a louder voice, and bravery agreed for once. We were just leaping, metaphorically and literally, into the unknown, and we didn't quite know what we'd find, but that was okay. It was more than okay. Okay, so that was my comment app essay. So just to kind of break it down for you, This is about my hitchhiking trip in the Armenian countryside during my spring break because I lived in Armenia for the past 2 years in UWC Dilijan. And so this was a very enriching experience for me because I have never gone hitchhiking before, and through this hitchhiking experience I think I learned more about Armenian culture than almost a year in school taught me. So I wanted to write about this experience because personally it really highlights like my love for travel, and I think without this experience I would really be a different person. And there was this internal conflict that was going on in my mind as deciding whether to go or not to go, because logically, like when you don't really know any Armenian, it's kind of dangerous. And like on the day of the trip I was actually deciding if I should just fake being sick or something to get out of this, because it's scary, you know, traveling with people you don't know very well. Like they are my friends, but you know, it's still like there's some degree of anxiety there. And also just traveling in general is such a stressful event, but I tried to think about all the risks, all the rewards that I would reap, and everything that I would gain out of this experience, and that made me think that this was worth it. So a lot of the times when I'm thinking about embarking on a risky journey or making a choice that I know could end up really badly for me, there really is this kind of trial thing that's going on in my head, where bravery and nervousness are at odds. But then because I study a lot of like postmodern theory and postmodern literature in my English class, I kind of thought about this as like a binary that we could deconstruct. So what if it's not really this binary of bravery versus nervousness, and we can really deconstruct it and see that they kind of blend together and they kind of need each other. So to break down my essay a little more, I want to say that I chose this topic not only because of how important this experience was for me, but also because I think this appeals to my strengths. So for example, I already wrote about how much I love psychology because I'm aiming for a psychology major. In my other essays, I thought, why not talk about traveling and cultural exchange and all that. So I know that being in Armenia as an Asian is sort of like a weird combination, so I know that this would catch their attention a little more. But again, this event is not like the most wacky thing. Like a lot of people have gotten lost while hitchhiking, or have been in a risky situation where they don't know, am I gonna live? Maybe not. Well, so again, this is like the vehicle that's holding the message, that's transporting the message. So the vehicle is a trip that I went on. So the hitchhiking trip is the vehicle, and the message was that bravery and nervousness, like a lot of other dichotomies, are not really strictly binary. They can be deconstructed, and they actually need each other, and that's how we have an enriched human experience, you know, like that. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. Also, I tried to put some humor in it. I don't know if the jokes will fall flat, but I hope. I think Stanford is one of those schools that have like a sense of humor, as you can tell from their prompts later that I'll explore. But this, yeah, I tried to put some humor in it. Like I tried to talk about how drivers always smoke in the cars in Armenia. Like this is a classic Armenian like taxi drive situation, even though this wasn't a taxi, but it can only get worse from here, you know. But this is a classic taxi ride experience. So this is real, by the way. So it was winter, and then there was like ice everywhere on the roads. So the driver was windows up, driving super fast and driving down like this slope turn thing. There's ice there, so the driver was smoking inside. There was Nicki Minaj, I think it was like Chong Li, like blasting through the speakers, and then like the car just went down the slope turn thing and then like spun in that same spot for like 3 seconds or so because of the ice on the road. It was like, again, will we die? We don't really know. But that's a classic Armenian taxi ride experience where you're inhaling so much cigarette smoke. Your ears are kind of like deafened by the rap music that's like bass boosted from their speakers. and you're in like a life-threatening situation, you know, perfect combination. So that's kind of like, I wanted to capture that chaotic nature of Armenian rides in general through this. So I wrote about how I accidentally inhaled the driver's cigarette smoke, and I also talked about like how the policeman just randomly invited us into a hut. Like we were just walking up and we thought we were kind of trespassing or something, but then the policeman who was like guarding the source of the spring in the village, like the water source, kind of just invited us to his hut, you know, a little hut with coffee. It was really great. Like I understood nothing because my other friends who spoke Russian communicated with him, and I understood nothing. But I would like occasionally pop in with like, yeah, very tasty, you know, like the very few Russian words I know. So that's kind of the experience, and it's just really casual. Like everyone is so friendly in Armenia. Like the policeman gave us some jam, and then some other drivers gave us lavash and also offered us vodka, which we did not take because that's illegal. And yeah, so that's really just a wonderful experience, and I wouldn't have gotten to know this if I just stayed in my shell of a school and kind of like remained in a bubble. It served as a barrier between me and really the local community and the local culture that's here, so rich and wonderful, that we really couldn't experience, especially this year with quarantine and all. Sorry this was this long. I'll put like a timestamp so you can skip forward if you don't want to hear about this. But yeah, so I just really, this was such an important experience for me, and I really cherished it, and I thought that my insight about like nervousness and bravery and this dichotomy thing was sort of unique. So that's why I chose this to talk about. So you know, obviously you don't have to talk about such a like niche cultural experience, but I think the perspective is what matters, because normally, for example, if we say, okay, taking risks is great, okay, so what? But they're taking risk implies that there is like an element of danger that's involved. That's my counter argument, and I fleshed it out by saying, okay, no, you need nervousness as well to kind of balance each other out. So yeah, so that's kind of my comment essay, and yeah. Okay, so this is my Stanford supplements. So this is the first prompt. The Stanford community is deeply curious and driven to learn in and out of the classroom and reflect on an idea or experience that makes you genuinely excited about learning. So this is a space where I talk about psychology because that's what I want to major in. So this is the intellectual vitality essay of Stanford. Sitting around the dining table, Grandma tapped her feet impatiently, waiting for extended family to arrive. The door swung open as my aunt and other grandma hobbled in. "Where's Uncle?" I chirped, hoping to meet this almost mythic character for the first time since I was 5. My aunt shook her head. "He didn't want to come to our Chinese New Year's gathering." Grandma chuckled. Later on, my mom told me that my uncle suffers from social anxiety and paranoid delusions. Knowing this, did he really have the choice of attending that dinner? At UWC, I chose to study philosophy. Something in the syllabus caught my eye immediately: free will and determinism. We went through how Sartre says free will implies all-encompassing responsibility, and Beauvoir's softer approach that incorporates oppression. Disappointingly, neither model of free will takes into consideration mental illness and biological determinism. Thus, I took it upon myself to develop an improved model. This intersection between psychology and philosophy truly fascinates me. With empirical neuroscientific studies casting doubt on free will, such as Libet's Bereitschaft potential or genetic hardwiring, what will happen to our understanding of volition? What about our legal system that distinguishes between voluntary and involuntary actions, or how society should approach responsibility and victim blaming? I don't have the answers. We're all exploring uncharted territory, which excites me. This extends far beyond mental health, but for now, I believe we should approach the biologically shackled with empathic understanding, not to necessarily say you're powerless, but you're heard. Okay, so that was my intellectual vitality essay. I talked about how psychology and philosophy fascinate me, and yeah, I also got comments from my peers and my college counselor, and they said that the strengths of this essay was that it was very specific, so it hones in onto one specific event how I use that curiosity from my childhood in my later academic pursuits, and then how that also extends like far beyond like me and myself, but also like to society. So I think for this essay, just like when you're talking about intellectual vitality, also extrapolate it. I'm not sure if that's the best advice or that it applies to everything, but I think that's a general, like a good rule of thumb to just kind of say more about, like say something deeper about what your topic is. So extrapolate it into the general, like a grander lens of society or something. So that's kind of my advice for this. Yeah. And also, if you're, for example, you're going to like computer science, like use some very computer science specific jargon or words to show that you actually understand the topic. So for me, I just peppered in some psychological studies, some philosophical theories, and yeah, it's like free will structures, a whole model of free will, and like transcendence and immanence, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's all the advice I can give you for this.
What could I do? Look right from the Brookfield Zoo. Speak to.
So this is the Karud essay. So this is the most fun one. This is the one you get me the most quirky with and the most, like liberal with, I would say. So this one is just really to get to know your personality. So what are your hobbies? Who are you? What matters to you? So just more of the same thing, like more getting to know you. Okay, so I'm gonna read my essay. Hey Rumi, first of all, you're in luck. I hail from the land of instant noodles, the absolute height of cuisine. If ever the cafeteria seems too far, stop by Café de Pache, a hub of intercultural understanding through taste. It might not be a Michelin 3-star restaurant, but I promise the conversations are top-notch. I live with 3 roommates now, so I'm respectful when sharing the space. For instance, I'm tidy until exam week, and I'll inevitably start merging with my bed. By no means am I minimalist. My corner will be dotted with galaxy projection and red fairy lights for that technicolor ambience. The walls will reflect my chaotic nature. There will be a medley of everything, ranging from surrealist art to Green Day posters to T.S. Eliot poems. In addition to decoration mayhem, I'm also looking forward to the midnight existential rabbit holes we'll come down to. We can start from Eurocentric beauty standards and drift towards how the emoji movie relates to Adorno's cultural industry. Chatter and clickety-clackety typing won't be the only sounds in the room. You might hear morning bird chirps intermixed with ocarina toots, or you might catch me pretending to be a punk rocker shredding on my ukulele. This year, I created experimental ambient beats for my plant babies, and I want to widen my scope to humans, starting with you. I would love to create a theme song tailored to both personalities. Waiting to transform this from a monologue to a dialogue. Rachel. Okay, so that's just a little fun thing, and I just talked about my love for music, my love for like existential, like philosophical conversations. I also really like Theodore Adorno's culture industry, so that's kind of something that I stuck in. And yeah, Green Day, T.S. Eliot, just have fun with this one. Yeah, that's okay. This third essay is the meaningful essay, and the prompt is very vague, so you can really just write about anything. This one took me the longest, and this one was personally for me the hardest to write because there's so much, to choose from, and also you have to make it deep, but it's very, and you have to also make it unique. And I just really this one was the one that I started thinking about from summer because I didn't think about what was meaningful to me, the most meaningful to me, because I really wanted to choose the best one to write about. And honestly, to this day, I don't know if this is the most meaningful to me, but this is what I wrote about, and it does have an impact on me. So I think just whatever has an impact on you is good enough. So the prompt tells about something that is meaningful to you and why. So when I was young, daily world wars were waged in our apartment, demolishing everything. I didn't understand why. knew that I had to escape. I couldn't find any meaning in reality, so I hid into piles of picture books. I immersed myself in Frog and Toad's tranquil routine and boarded the Polar Express to travel to where the wild things are. There was meaning in the art and storylines, neatly tied into happily ever afters. As I grew older, I realized escapism simply cannot be the answer. I avoided dealing with my fears, shoving them deep down. Sometimes they would peek through and I felt utterly helpless. However, seeing creatures beyond my wildest imagination coming to life and illustrations inspired me to bring such fantastical wonder into this realm. Yes, the world is chaotic and meaningless, but meaning is not inherent, it is created. Art is how I create meaning. Instead of escaping through art, I evolved to be resilient with art, a force in a battle against the uncaring universe. To share this creative weapon, I founded Psych Art, where students can express what words cannot capture and find beauty in their unique yet shared struggles. My purpose now is to disseminate art therapy through social media, decorating my school's medical center and residences, and working with the Taiwanese Art Therapy Association. Gruffaloes have transcended from picture book pages to being my lifelong companion, and I splatter splotches of meaning to fight back on this path I have yet to carve out. So this essay is cheesy, but I think also just college essays in general are very cheesy. You can't really escape that. But I tried to have like a very clear message, like stated directly in the essay. So about how the world is chaotic and meaningless, but meaning is created, and art is how I do that. So I don't escape with art, but I fight with art. And then I extrapolated, okay, so after gaining this insight, what did I do with this, you know? I created a club, so people can also do this with me. So that's kind of like the flow of logic, because I think this whole thing like relates back to philosophy and kind of what we studied in philosophy class about how Pascal said like there's this battle against man and the universe, and it's unwinnable. Like this is forever, this is endless, yet we have to fight it. Like this is kind of the human condition, right? Camus said like, okay, suicide is the only logical answer to our problem. There is no meaning. Sisyphus just rolls the rock up the hill forever. There's no meaning. But yeah, so you have to find that something that gives you meaning, and you have to create meaning. So that's kind of the idea that I'm trying to get behind. Okay. The Stanford short questions. I think these might change next year. I'm not sure. Like sometimes they get rid of some or they add some. So the first question is, what is the most significant challenge that society faces today? So I wrote chain of oppression. In the master-slave dialectic, the slave experiences internalized oppression. Instead of collaborative intersectionality, seeking recognition, we step on the weaker, marginalized, to appease the master. This can explain the model minority myth and why many Taiwanese people worship Japan, a former colonizer, and discriminate against Southeast Asians. This one only has 50 words maximum. So these short questions, they all have 50 words maximum. So we can't really talk about some deep when you talk about a deep issue, you have to really condense your explanation into something that's manageable and something that's coherent in 50 words. Try not to be like super generic, because I know, for example, you can say global warming, climate change, but then like how is your stance different from other people who write about global warming and climate change? So I try to be a bit more specific to my interests, and not only using the theories that I've learned and the things I'm interested in to apply it to real life examples and that relate to my own home country. I also try to actually give examples, concrete examples. You may disagree with me, that's fine, but this is my take. So like they just really want to see your perspective and how your perspective is unique to be like how you can apply your perspective to real life global issues. So that's kind of what I think they're getting at with this prompt. Our next prompt is, how did you spend your last 2 summers? 2019, attended Harvard summer course on the art and science of memory, did park aerobics with grandma, chaired MUN conferences, learned electric guitar, tutored English. 2020, road tripping to reconnect with my Taiwanese roots, made and donated pottery to homeless center, started Psych Art Instagram, produced Western Sahara documentary, published poetry collection. What historical moment or event do you wish you could have witnessed? Big B carrying an umbrella in World War II to broadcast his Britishness to his fellow soldiers as he often forgot the military password. His calm composure in war and innovative use of bugles made him an admirable leader. I'm inspired by Big B's absurd heroism to transform frustration into the spur for wins. So this one, I just browsed r/history and then today I learned these subreddits to kind of gain like weird historical facts because I don't want to write about like Martin Luther King or some generic historical event or historical figure, right? So and me, I'm really interested in like wacky historical events. If you watch like Salmon Academy on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, next question. I'm gonna try to speed through this because I know this video is probably already way too long at this point. Okay, briefly elaborate on one of your extracurricular activities, a job you hold, or responsibilities you have for your family. The Western Saharan conflict is so unknown. I strive to give a voice to the voiceless. Similar to Taiwan, major political powers don't recognize Western Sahara sovereignty. Due to MINERSO's futile efforts and funding fatigue, I'm spearheading research into WS's free zone for infrastructure construction to enable refugees to become self-reliant. So I'm elaborating on the Under the Sun organization I'm part of. So this year I was leading this team that was founded by like a refugee who was actually from there who also went to UWC. And I just condensed Western Sahara into WS because word limit. And I'm really passionate about this, and we're trying to not only raise money for houses and water tanks and air conditioners, but we're also trying to like promote sustainability and long-term development, long-term solutions rather than very short-term solutions, because there is such thing as funding fatigue and like too much dependence on foreign aid. So that we want to, there's this free zone of Western Sahara. Basically, we're trying to do research about that and the natural resources there, so that one day maybe the refugees can move to that Western Sahara free zone, so they can no longer be refugees, which means of course they don't get foreign aid, but they can actually have like a piece of land to cultivate and develop and become like a real country, hopefully one day. And also I try to relate to Taiwan, which is like just a bit of personal connection. Okay, name one thing you're looking forward to experiencing at Stanford. Adventures, be that frost or academic adventures fueled by intellectual curiosity. One such venture is working with Professor Diseroth, with whom I share an appreciation of knowledge for knowledge's sake. Serendipity in science triggers vital breakthroughs, bringing improvement. His optogenetics research advances investigation into Parkinson's, which my grandfather died from. I just like searched up professors in Stanford. I did a lot of research into this professor, and I read a lot of his papers, and I genuinely was very interested in it, so I chose to write about him. Yeah, so I would just say, like, instead of saying something general like fountain hopping, just like try to mix your intellectual pursuits with something fun that you want to experience at Stanford. Okay, so one thing that I forgot to mention is that I try to have an overarching theme throughout all my essays. So that's something like a common thread that connects all these essays together. So peppering it in philosophy or psychology or art under the overarching theme of adventures. So adventures for hitchhiking, adventures like in intellectual curiosity, adventures in like, I don't know, life itself, adventures in like battling against the universe. Also even like Big B, for example, like in my historical reference prompt, it's also like a little adventure of a sort, you know, adventure into the past. So yeah, like this is a kind of generic theme, but I really tried to tie it all together. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's it, I think. Yeah. So you know how in the Common App the Common App application you have space to talk about, I think this year there's COVID. I don't know if there is this space for next year, but just, yeah, don't really talk about like how miserable you are and how negative you are feeling about all this, but try to write about how you took advantage of these events and then try to make the most of things in this current condition, right? In these extraordinary times. And in the additional information part, I just wrote about my IB extended essay because I did the IB, so I think that's a really good space to write about that. If you have like any research papers or anything that you're really proud of, I think that's a space to elaborate on. So yeah, so really that's all. So I know Stanford has like a lot of supplements. It's one of, like, Yale also has a lot of supplements. So just like, I think my best advice is really just to start early because yeah, there's a lot, but also don't overthink. I know with more time we tend to overthink, but don't do that. But just try out different methods. Actually, I wrote like 3 drafts of my Common App essay, but the one I ended up with was the first one. So it goes to show like my instinct was really correct. And I actually, it's very hard when you're reading back these and looking back at these essays to not dislike your essays. Because I think a lot of times when you're looking at your own work, it's hard to not be biased, and I really hate whatever I produce today. But that's my bias talking. So just try to get your peers, your teachers, people who know you very well to see, okay, does this sound like you? Does this really show you? And then all aspects of you, right? So for example, for me, my college counselor really helped me. For those of you who really don't have a college counselor, actually you can send these essays to me and I can try my best to like comment. I don't promise anything, obviously. Like, I don't promise that the comments are going to be good or worthwhile, but I do want to help because I know this is such a strenuous process. And there's so much work that goes into each and every one of these applications. And yeah, good luck. Thanks for watching. And yeah, I don't promise I'm not gonna try to milk this whole Stanford thing. But you know, also like, it's fun, you know? Like, finally, I went from watching these videos to making one myself, you know? That's like development. But yeah, thanks for watching this video. Hope it's not too boring, and I hope it actually helped. Okay, thanks.